The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Mind, Body, Spirit show today. I think this show you're going to enjoy a great deal because this is something you can apply to your life and your loved one's life and make them a great deal healthier. And it's not that hard to do. Don't consider fasting to be complex. I mean, what is fasting? It's a voluntary decision not to eat for a period of time. You make the decision. It could be part of a day. It could be a week. It could be a month. It can't be over 2 months because you may not be alive. Okay? So let's go on this trip together, and I think you will find this fascinating. You can do it for a long period of time, and the fasting in history goes back, incidentally, thousands of years. It has a lot of history associated with it, and it was done mainly for spirituality in relationship to God. And over the years, though, Hippocrates, for example, used it to treat our own illnesses, and they felt fasting was better than most medications or procedures, and it still is today. I fast for periods of time. I do time-regulated eating. I fast for 16 hours in that window, and then eat in an 8-hour window. So there are many different ways. It can be a few hours a day, for example, but I want to explain this more to you. There's a difference between craving for food and true hunger. For example, big food knows the difference between fasting and hunger and craving, and they've painted their food with chemicals so that you will break your fast and crave the food, which can ruin your health and is ruining the health of many people. So fasting has a lot in history. Shaman did it 3,000 years ago, yeah. It was done in the jungles of South America, the monasteries of Tibet. But we can fast for specific things, too, not just for all food. We could fast for sobriety, not drink any alcohol. It could be used for thinking, to meditate and try not to think for a number of hours. Some people do it for days. It can be done a withdrawal, say, into nature, this solidarity. You just get away from human beings. It can be done for the Sabbath, not to cook for certain periods of time, for example. So fasting is the best spice. Yes, it's better than any spice. And I explained the science to you. But it doesn't mean eliminating something from your life completely. It's just for a period of time, okay? And so an uncontrolled fast, if you don't control it, then you could call it starvation, for example. So intermittent fasting is the best and the easiest to do, and that's what I hope to recommend for you today, not to miss days or weeks or months. I recommend 16-8, 16 hours of fasting, and then you eat in an 8-hour period, because that's something that's doable. I do it every day. I weighed again 134 pounds today. It's very stable. I am 87 next month. No illnesses. All my blood tests are normal. Play pickleball, tap dance, walk every day, and feel great. And that is because in this fasting period, for example, I get up in the morning around 5, and I have TV shows as today, and read a lot of books and write books. But in this fasting, you can drink some liquids, coffee, tea, water, but you can't eat, because then you will change the metabolism of and you will break the fast. You want a clean fast. Some people, what happens is, if you do it for a number of hours and say, don't eat breakfast, okay, but eat when 16 hours up, eat around 11 or 12 or so, in that period of time, your body is undergoing what's called autophagia. Autophagia. The body is being cleansed. Your damaged proteins are being removed. Garbage collection is going on. You're removing cells that are broken down. Cancer cells, for example, are being removed from your body. You are being cleansed. And while I'm having the coffee, I always thought it was the caffeine in the coffee, because I seem to get a high in a cup or two of coffee. But actually what's happening is that in the coffee is a chemical called caffeine. And this caffeine, this chemical, doubles ketones. Ketones are small molecules of energy like glucose, except they're smaller and have a lot more energy in them. It makes your brain feel great. You become optimistic. You have more energy. I play pickleball, for example, a lot in the morning, 4 or 5 days a week. And I really feel energetic. I feel like going, because I think I'm in ketone metabolism. The way the physiology works, if you're not eating, your blood sugar is being used up, okay, and it drops, and the insulin chemical drops, and as the two are dropping, a switch is occurring in your body, and you're switching to fat metabolism. When the insulin glucose level reaches a certain level, the fat cells open up, they go to the liver, undergo change to ketones, and that's what you use for energy after that. That's the advantage. Meanwhile, autophagia in your body is occurring. I feel great, and I think it's the coffee. It's what it is that I'm now in ketone metabolism. After about 6 to 8 hours, remember 16 hours of fast, you're going to a good 70% ketones. Make me feel it's a great day. You feel like singing a song, and actually I do at times, because I may walk outside in nature. So a metabolic switch has occurred. I went from sugar metabolism. Also, sugar can be converted to glycogen. Your liver has about 100 grams and about 400 grams in muscle. So when the insulin and the sugar level drops, it then uses glycogen for energy. But when the glycogen is gone, then what do you use for energy? Fat, ketones. So ketone metabolism is part of this, and the reason this is great to use, if you have any fat to lose, it'll disappear quickly. And if you have very little more to lose, like I do, I'm 134 pounds, and I have no visible fat, although there is actually fat in a person's muscles, even if they look thin, because you use that for energy. Every person has fat in their body, even if they look thin, because the body keeps it there in case of an emergency. And that's most people do not know that. The chemical that causes the fat switch is cholecystokinin, and there are many hormones involved. When you wake up in the morning, the reason that generally a person is not hungry once adopted is different hormones in your body, about 5 or 6. Let me review them. Human growth hormone from the pituitary keeps your raises your blood sugar, because through circadian rhythm, the morning is approaching, your body figures it out, and the growth hormone keeps your blood sugar at a certain level. You only get hungry if the blood sugar goes down, okay? And also, because of the stresses of the day start, your body realizes that through circadian rhythm. Adrenaline gets secreted, and that keeps your blood sugar up a little bit. Glucagon, the opposite to insulin, tells the liver through gluconeogenesis to make a little blood sugar to keep it up a bit. The leptin, which is made by the white fat cells, also is telling your body and having its effect. In ghrelin, the hunger hormone in the stomach gets involved too. It increases the appetite, but when you're in autophagia, when you're in fasting, the ghrelin level goes down and decreases your appetite. So you have many hormones telling you not to eat, and I don't feel hungry. I don't have breakfast, and I'm not hungry. What's interesting, in history, we didn't start eating 3 meals a day till around 200 years ago. Yeah, 10,000 years ago, we had the agricultural revolution. We started growing crops and storing them, but we used to have to forage for food, and there wasn't always food available. So we ate. Sometimes we fasted, missed days till we could find something to eat. Other times, it'd be plentiful, and we would store them, and we would even become fat, because there were times of the year in evolution that we had nothing to eat, and we ate off the fat that we had accumulated, just like animals. A woodchuck, wouldn't believe it, I keep a woodchuck as my friend. He smiles at me under my house, and he's getting fatter and fatter and fatter all year long. And then suddenly, around November or so, he disappears. He had a switch in his body, and now he lives off the fat he accumulated. Also, his basic metabolic rate, the rate of metabolism, goes way, way down, maybe 10, 20% of what it was. And he's been living down under my house all these months off the fat. So he goes into hibernation, which we can't do, so we don't want to copy him, but it's related to hormone metabolism and food. And these processed food companies, they have figured out through flavorings and sweetness and odors that they try to break our fast. They make things that smell so good, taste so good, that you want to buy them, and they're making a lot of money, and you fall for it, and you're eating too much because these hormones are affecting your hormones in your body, and you keep on eating, and you can't stop eating because they have all these hormonal stimulators in the food. Yeah. That's why we are addicted to fast food a great deal, which is unfortunate, because the world, not just our country, but the world is sick with diabetes and the secondary 50 or more diseases, increased rates of cancer, blindness, amputations, dislocations, heart attacks, strokes, skin diseases, renal disease, heart disease, all related to what we eat, and a lot of it is fast food. So if I can get you to fast, well, you're not hungry. I fast every day, and then I eat 2 meals. And if you were to eat actually one of these fairly healthy meals, you're going to be of normal weight and probably live to be 100. Mm-hmm. So fasting is an easy way to prevent, to avoid, to even reverse many diseases. Yes, I've taken many type 2 diabetics, overweight. 20% of people who are thin still have diabetes and its diseases. Yeah, they have fat in their liver and fat in their pancreas, and their pancreas is not secreting insulin, which stuffs sugar into your cell. So we all need to get, actually, what I recommend highly, which is not done in this nation, but it's many books. It's in many books. It's not just me. What I say has been confirmed in many books, is to get a serum insulin test. Insulin is elevated. You can check it with a blood test. Is elevated 10 to 15 years before the blood sugar goes up. We diagnose diabetes with an elevated blood sugar. 10 to 15 years before the blood sugar goes up. So we did serum insulin tests on children. We would catch them on the path to diabetes many years before. Many children now are diabetic, and they're going to get all these illnesses, and they could be prevented. It's a lot easier to lose 5 pounds than 100 pounds. Yeah. Industry is allowing us to become sick so they can make money to work on us. If you look at this book I have here, Prevention is the Cure. I encourage you to read this. All the information I've been speaking about is in there and in more detail. This time-regulated eating, intermittent fasting, and then going into ketone metabolism will get you back to great health in weeks. Your blood sugars became your normal quickly. If you are diabetic and you're going to do the fasting and ketone way of eating, it'll be quick. Yeah, it'd be best that you would get a Dexcom 8 meter where you have this thing on your arm, and an hour after you eat, you go like this and tell you your blood sugar. Libra is another one, and they now record it on a computer and show you a graph. It's been tremendous detail. I highly encourage you, because if you do fasting and you start eating the right foods, I'll tell you about the right foods in a minute, you'll get rid of your diabetes quickly. The start could be in a week. If you don't feel right, your blood sugar probably went down. So I encourage you to get these meter. I mean, suppose you do the fasting, and then if you ate normal food, you'll get healthy. It may take a few weeks longer, but you will get healthy and you will have a normal weight. But if you then also eat mainly good fats, 60, 70%, 20% protein, yes, vegetables and fruit, maybe only 10 to 15%. Why is that? Because the vegetables and the fruit have sugar in them. Mm-hmm. The vegetarian way of eating is a good way of eating, and Mayor Eric Adams in New York City, he's converting the whole city to eating this way because he'd get rid of his diabetes that way. But I don't agree with everything in the book he published, because he badmouths all fats. No, we have good fats and we have bad fats. So what I recommend, which is written about in this book, and on the back of it, I actually have this you know, the smiley face, and I'm saying smart fats 65%, smart vegetables 15%, smart protein 20%, and exercise, and you'll be healthy very quickly. Easy to read, and I'm not here promoting a book, but you need some more information. You can Google these things. Another great book was The Case for Keto by Gary Taubes. I mean, it's a fantastic book. I encourage you to read it, look it up. You can get it on Amazon or here at the library. What I'm speaking about today is you want to gather information, because health is the most important thing really in our life. We can be without a job. We can be out this. We can be out that. But if you don't have good health, you get very little. Mm-hmm. So I think that is extremely important, and that's what. So let's go further on the road. Autophagia, you know, I spoke about that already. Self-cleaning and eating system of accumulated toxins, misshapen proteins, dead cells. All those are cleaned out of your body. Microscopic garbage can impair normal activity. Get rid of it through autophagia. Some cells are repaired, others are excreted from the body. Autophagia, while you're fasting, is occurring. It reduces the cancer rate. It increases our ability to think, because our ketones go to the brain, and insulin resistance is reduced, which is the cause of a lot of dementia. And we can think a lot. Our memory would be better. And it slows the aging process. It keeps the cells in good working order. And the whole animal kingdom practices that, okay? The Scripps Research Institute in California found, and they proved it scientifically, a profound cleanup of neurons, of our nerves, and fasting improve the ability to age, or if you're not doing it, aging will speed up if you're eating the bad fats, for example. So fasting through NAD, a chemical, okay, goes into action, and it's the heart of the aging process. Mm-hmm. And you will look a lot younger than you are. Myself, I'm 87 on no pills. All my blood tests are normal. Play pickleball, tap dance, all sorts of things. One person doesn't prove anything, I guess, but I am doing what I'm speaking about, okay? And if you fast for 24 hours, it actually gets to the basic level that the stem cells, the start of good cells, start to work. So if 16-8 is not working for you, like you are way overweight and you're trying still seeking to eat sugar, incidentally, if you're fasting and you just can't get over eating that donut, for example, if you put some ghee, some good butter in your coffee, just a little bit, in some MCT 8 or 10 oil, that's medium chain fatty triglycerides that are mainly from coconuts, put about a tablespoonful in your coffee. Ketone metabolism goes way up, you feel a little better, and you may get over your addiction like that. So insulin really is the metabolic switch. That insulin level has to go down by the glucose level going down and the glycogen being metabolized for energy, which fasting accomplishes, okay? And when you're in nutritional ketosis, and you can check it actually by buying some very cheap urine sticks. I think it's like 100 for $9, I think, at one of the drugstores, and urinate on that. It'll turn pink if you're in ketone. That's not necessary to do that. I feel good every day after drinking the coffee. Why should I check the ketones? I know I'm in that. But if you're having a problem and you're just not losing weight and you're not accomplishing in 16.8, you might first check your ketones, see if you're in ketone. If you're not, then maybe extend your fasting period a couple hours. And odds are 90% of the time you will then know you're in ketone metabolism, and your fat cells will open up and you lose weight and you're good at diabetes maybe a month or so instead of a week or two, okay? And so ketones, remember the good fats made by the energy molecules, they wake up the brain and you can think better and remember the song better. And that is a great preventer of advanced dementia. You may call it Alzheimer's disease. I'll be honest with you, though, I think if you're not doing anything to maintain a good metabolic system, that the end stage is what they call Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Peter Whitehouse from the Cleveland Clinic wrote a book years ago called The Myth of Alzheimer's Disease. I happened to read that and really felt that he's got a point. And I wrote a book after called The Fraud of Alzheimer's Disease. They're using it to promote an illness when reality is preventable the majority of the time. But there are a few genetic cases. So that is true. The fasting means going without, but it doesn't mean everything that you can pick up. Protein foods actually work and provide energy. So remember I said 65% or so good fats, 20% protein. And the reason you don't want to eat too much protein, because your body takes 80% of the protein, which is damaged, recycled protein. And only 20% of the protein you take in gets converted to protein you use in your body. If you're taking in more protein than that, it gets converted to sugar. So when you see these bodybuilders bulking up, don't you wonder some of that, maybe most of that is fat and not actually muscle, because the metabolism of proteins is a little bit different. So you want to avoid certain type of fats. Good, bad fats will be commercial oils, canola, corn, peanut, soybean. These are inflammatory fats, and they will cause inflammation in your body. Most disease is due to inflammation. Other things that can cause inflammation would be gluten. Okay, protein can do that. The casein, the protein in milk, can do that too. They are poor protein sources. Mm-hmm. Milk is meant from cows. Is meant for baby cows, not for human consumption. Read a book called Whitewash by Joe Keon. It gives you that in detail. And if you're still giving your child milk, I probably would say maybe you don't know how to read or you didn't read the book. Read the book. You need to read about that. Very important. The industry has promoted this on you, and most of America has fallen for that. But you notice there is less milk consumption. But once you know the science, Whitewash by Joe Keon with 1,000 scientific references, and when I tell you about these things, that milk, the casein in milk, the protein is a poor protein source. And so the leptin, remember, that comes out of the white fat in our body, it does affect our appetite, and it's called the satiety hormone. When the leptin level is up, and And leptin will send a message. Leptin is made mainly by the white fat, but it'll send a message to the hypothalamus and turn your appetite off. And it's affected by whether you're fasting or not and what you're eating. When we go into keto metabolism, when we're out of the glucose and the glycogen from fasting, for example, we can have what's called a keto flu. They may last for a week or two. When we first go into fasting, it makes you feel maybe occasionally nauseated, occasionally diarrhea. And the reason that you have it is that there's been a change in fat and sugar metabolism in your gut buddies, your gut bacteria, affecting the polysaccharides. The gut bacteria get distressed about it, and they're the ones establishing keto flu. People get over it generally in a week or two. And so fasting also controls your gut because you're not feeding your gut bacteria who are hungry, but they don't live very long. Gut bacteria live a matter of minutes or hours at most. So does the lining of your gut. They change quickly, can be affected what you're taking in. Remember, we had 30 trillion gut bacteria in there. So the microbiome really is our support organ. So whether you're fasting or eating, it affects your gut. Remember we talked about the coffee and the fasting and making me feel optimistic. I think the ketones are doing it. But if you still don't feel good fasting, remember what I said about adding a little bit of ghee, butter, or adding some MCT oil, and you'll soon get over that. You may not need to use it. I don't need it. And so what does fasting do for you? Let's go over a little more detail. It makes your body burn fats. I already explained to you the science of that. It helps your gut heal itself, depending on the type of food and the fasting. In autophagia, the gut is healing itself. Very important, okay? It provides self-cleaning autophagia. We spoke about that already. It reduces risk of almost every chronic disease. Wow. Isn't fasting a great idea? It reduces the risk of almost every chronic disease. And when we look at it in history, that we only ate a meal or two before, not 3 meals a day like we have the last 300 years. We're just making us sick. So to skip one meal, 16/8 of the fasting shouldn't be a big deal. It wasn't to me, okay? And it causes your body to produce more stem cells, cells that, the original cells, good cells, not damaged cells, are more likely produced if you're fasting. It reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes. Wow, 80 to 90% of people have type 2 diabetes. There are racial groups where 90% of diabetes. They report maybe 40% of them know it. They have not had the insulin test. If you're a little bit overweight and you haven't had an insulin test and you say my blood sugar is normal, I'll bet you 90% chance you are indeed diabetic. Get the insulin test and even get it on children. Joseph Kraft wrote a famous book many years ago, 2006. The science behind that, Joseph Kraft. You can see him on YouTube show. And so fasting increases insulin sensitivity. The insulin is working now instead of not working. It slows the aging from oxidative stress, reduces inflammation. This is fasting. And brain inflammation, okay? Boosts your emotional state. You feel more optimistic. Remember I said now you're in keto metabolism. if you're doing a fasting state and you're feeling better, feel optimistic, you build self-confidence, okay? Improves your relationship with food, enhances your ability to enter a spiritual state. Remember I said fasting has a long, long spiritual history. Almost every religion had fasting in it. Ramadan for a month, a 40-hour fast, a 2-day fast, a partial day fast, a 12-hour fast, all types of fasting available. And to go into a meditative state, a spiritual state. Fasting is used in different religions, and I totally go along with that. But again, you may not just fast from all food. You may just from alcohol or cigarettes or drugs, flavoring agents. Did you know this? And it's in many books, and it's also in Gary Taubes' book, incidentally. There's sugar in cigarettes. Yes. And the cigarette companies added sugar in around 1910 when they took the leaf and they soaked it in molasses to increase the sugar in cigarettes because sugar is more addictive than nicotine. Read Gary Taubes' book. I knew that long before that book came out. And but sugar in cigarettes, just Google it, or buy Gary Taubes' book. He has a whole chapter explaining it in great detail. So fasting decreases inflammation, and we may need to. Some people need to fast from thrilling movies. They get to watch a movie every day, or they watch a football game or a basketball game in great detail. I think that's fine, but to do it every day, you could become addicted to it, and fasting from it. I have some friends definitely that way. Fortunately, I'm addicted to pickleball, or relating to the animals and the birds or walking. I guess we all have some form of it, but try to pick something that makes you better. Sitting and watching a ball game all day, every day, I personally, I doubt it'll make you a great deal better because you'll be eating bad food most of the time, or drinking an alcoholic drink, or smoking a cigarette. So the key really is in fasting which foods to keep out when you do decide to eat. Milk, remember, has this protein casein in it, which is not good for you, increased rates of cancer. It's more addictive than nicotine. Out of the books, okay? So milk and wheat, because the wheat has in it the gluten, that's a biological addiction. The gluten in bread and the casein in milk are highly addictive. You might have trouble quitting bread. I have bread occasionally, a couple of days a week, it's okay, but I don't really feel a craving for it when I used to years ago. Maybe looking at a donut used to affect me. It doesn't anymore because the addiction is gone. In milk, it has been proven now, in milk there's even a chemical close to morphine, and maybe that's why it's addictive. That's been proven. I was at a medical meeting where a scientist from Sweden presented that, and I've read it in other books now. So fasting has been there since the beginning of time, because animals, even bacteria, couldn't always find food. So it's a normal process. And 3 meals a day. Why? Remember I said that didn't start till 100, 150, 200 years ago, because food was more available because of farming. And then industry came along, and the railroads and machinery, and they've been able to grow a lot more food, and then they start milling it, removing the coverings, removing the bran and the germ, and all you get left is the carbohydrates, which is largely sugar. So industry has affected us. The planned meals planned around certain foods, but it's not based on biology and evolution. The food industry wants us to eat 3 meals a day because that's where they make their money. And let me give you an example. I feel so privileged because 6 weeks ago I had received a phone call from a number of Indian doctors, and they told me they have so much diabetes and there's complications. In India, they can't afford to build enough hospitals. They can't afford to pay for it all. They want to use these shows that I do here at Public Access for 13 years now, and then I can have them converted to YouTube, and they're available on YouTube, and they ask my permission to use these 700-odd shows and change them into other languages, culturally and language, and blast it out to their universe of people to change the way they eat. But one of the big things they eat, I notice now, having a look closer at what they're eating, I have a Zoom meeting with them 10 o'clock every Sunday. I'm in heaven. I feel so privileged to speak to them. Is they eat a lot of rice, and that's almost in every recipe in many other cultures and countries too. But I was lucky to find that cauliflower rice has a lot less sugar. Remember, sugar is the booger and the hooker, and maybe 5% as much as regular rice, brown or white. Brown is a little less, but not a lot less. Just look at the glycemic index. One's 9, the other's 80. So changing from white to brown isn't going to accomplish a lot. But a switch to cauliflower rice would be a lot more healthy. There's a lot of resistant starch in there, a lot less bad chemicals, more vitamins, so instinct. And that's a real important point. I had a cookbook arrive the other day with recipes from cauliflower rice, and I've eaten it since, and it's very, very tasty, very tasty. So fasting was used in Ayurveda, in Indian medicine, and still is. It was a system of health developed in India 3,000 years ago. 3,000, so nothing is new. Pythagoras recommended it years ago, and the Greeks as a path to enlightenment. Remember, I said it affects your mind, and we know it can affect your brain. And he recommended fasting 40 days before you took an exam because you'd be a lot smarter. Okay. Paracelsus in the 16th century and said, fasting is a physician within you, at doing a physician, no breakfast, and improves the science of living. So fasting does increase insulin sensitivity. Insulin is more sensitive, and you can get rid of insulin resistance. Insulin resistance develops from eating bad foods, and you need more insulin to overcome it. And sometimes you cannot overcome it. And we are now arguing about the price of insulin, which stuffs sugar into the cell, but the sugar's still there. If you don't use it up, and if you don't store it as glycogen, it gets turned into fat. So insulin makes us fat. You want to be fat? Take insulin. The type 1 diabetic, when the pancreas is dead, they definitely need insulin. But if they eat right, they need very little insulin, 10 to 20 units. Now I see these pumps, and the people are eating a lot of food and just increase They have a Dexcom, and they increase the amount of insulin they give them themselves. They may live a little longer, but they will not lead a normal life because insulin makes people fat. Read about the science of it. Read about the science of it. So it's not just about the price, which these companies want to pat themselves on the back because they've capped the price of insulin at $35 a dose or a month or whatever. Get rid of your diabetes. You won't need it. Save thousands of dollars and be very healthy. So learn the science. Look at my other YouTube shows. You will gain the knowledge, or read books like Tom's book. You will gain the knowledge. So fasting is beneficial to the body and the spirit. And Orthodox religions fasted 180 to 200 days. The Muslims, for a month with Ramadan. Mohammed, every Monday and Thursday. They recommended no water with it, which I probably is fairly safe, but I don't know if that's been scientifically studied. And because remember I suggest fasting, drink some tea, or coffee, or water, but obey what your religion says. Must be fairly safe. Okay, and so in fasting, your insulin level goes down, your glucose level goes down. I'm going to be a little bit repetitive because we want to remember these things. And then it uses up the glucose and the glycogen after 6 to 8 hours. And now you go into ketones, which are high energy molecules that the body loves more than sugar. So, but in about 6 to 8 hours, you should be in ketone, and you can check it with strips. But if you're getting better, why bother? I never bothered to use them. I feel great. I'm of normal weight. So remember, I said if 16.8 doesn't seem to be after a few months, I'm not losing any weight. Maybe make it 18.6. But skipping days or weeks, I think, can backfire on you. I didn't say it wouldn't work. So once you're in nutritional ketosis, it provides about 75% of the energy. Sugar will still be part of you. So when to eat is the mother of weight timing. When to eat. Yeah, and like I said, if you eat two meals, like I showed you the pyramid of 65, 20, 15, you'll be very healthy very, very quickly. You'll not only prevent disease, you will reverse disease. 90% of increased rates of decreased rates of cancer will go way down. Otto Warburg in the 1930s, a scientist in Germany, a brilliant man, said it takes 13 molecules of sugar to make one ATP. That's the energy molecule, and that occurs in your mitochondria. Those are little energy factories that are inside every cell in your body, okay? So to make the mitochondria happy is a pretty important thing. And after eating this way, your body tends to get to a set weight. The body figures out what seems to work for you. If you're eating much less, you know what the body will do? They say, he's trying to starve himself. They will drop your basic metabolic rate, the rate that energy is burned. It'll go down, and you stop losing weight. And then you decide, well, gee whiz, I'm not losing weight anymore, and you eat what you used to eat, you're going to get very obese because your basic metabolic rate is low. The rate you're burning food in your body is much lower than that. And the reason, going to my own experience, I notice every day, 134, 133, 134, and I think my body knows its basic metabolic rate. and it's set. And if I were to eat some bad food, like the other night, I went to a music festival and I had a big piece of German cake, and I really felt full, and I thought the next day I'll be up 2 pounds. No, same set weight. What did the body do? It increased the metabolic rate during the night, and in the morning I was 134 pounds. You can only do that if you've eaten a certain way for a long time. That doesn't just happen in a week. I think my body knows what my basic metabolic rate is, and if I'm not perfect 7 days a week, it takes care of me. But if I consistently eat a huge piece of cake every night, it ain't gonna work. The basic metabolic rate will change, okay? Just to give you a little lesson. And so it is important. Who should avoid fasting? I don't recommend fasting, partly because it hasn't well studied to children age 18 and under. The reason being, they're going through growth spurts, it changes, and it hasn't been well studied. I actually think probably age 16 and under, I think will be fine, but I'm not saying 18 and under, you don't tell the kids to fast. What you can do, though, if they're eating bad food, most of the time you can't seem to stop their food addiction, that you would feed them a ketogenic way of ketogenic foods and try that for a month or two, and add it in addition to what they normally eat. And you know what I think will happen is their body will adjust, and you'll be reducing their sugar addiction. Yeah, there are many books on that, and I have a number of them. So to feed, and the reason we know that it works because years ago they had no medicine for seizures or convulsions, and it even goes back thousands of years, that if you feed kids mainly fatty foods, non-sugary foods, or fast them, they go into keto metabolism, and remember that that calms down the nervous system. Remember we spoke about that? And the seizures went away 70% of the time. Then drugs came along, and they made more money in drugs, so they don't even recommend that anymore. So to give kids some keto foods, you might try it. Like I said, fasting under age 18, I don't generally recommend it. Also, I wouldn't recommend fasting to a pregnant female, the elderly, where they have balance issues, and the 18 and under, you might give it, not use it. But fasting is easy. It's not hard. You don't need a medication to do it. If you get a Dexcom G6 or Libre, I think that's important in case your blood sugar drops too much, you're not feeling right, you need to know what your blood sugar is. And if your body mass index is 18.5 to 25 of normal weight, if it's greater than 25 to 29, you're overweight. Greater than 30, you're obese. You can correct that quickly by a combination of fasting and a keto way of eating without taking any medicine for it. Getting the serum insulin in children, 20 to 30% of normal weight people can actually have diabetes, so they should get a serum. Everyone should get a serum insulin yearly and put it on the computer or inside a book. See what it is. If it keeps on going up, you know you're heading to trouble. And I also suggest you get a kidney test, because kidneys and highly related to heart disease and diabetes. Get a GFR and a creatine albumin ratio, those two tests, and you catch people that seem to look okay but actually have advanced disease in their body. And just looking at people, the ones that are apple-shaped and have a big belly, odds are they're diabetic. They may say they're not diabetic, but they say they have a normal blood sugar, but they didn't get a serum insulin, so they don't really know. But we can be close to that, and if you happen to want to know your own basic metabolic rate, you can go online, use mayoclinic.org. They have a way to teach you how to do that. Let's summarize this a little bit. I mean, what does fasting do for you? Okay. Makes your body burn fats. Okay. For most of us, that's okay. Remember I said your gut heals, allows autophagia, where your body's being repaired. It decreases the risk of almost any disease, increases stem cells that originate new cells, decreases inflammation, increases our emotions, improves the relationship with food, increases ability to meditate, increase our religious and state. So that certainly can be helpful, for many of us, and it's easy to do. I mean, how are we going to change this huge epidemic of diabetes and diseases that is in our town or across the world, like I'm dealing with India and other countries around it now? How are you going to change them? And I gladly take some comments. Somebody wants to speak to me. I was at a music thing last night, and 5 feet away, I think Spirit of the Universe put it there, there's a way overweight couple. He's nearly on the floor asking her to marry them, and they're eating fast. I watched them eat horrible fast food for an hour and a half. There was good food on the menu, but they didn't choose it. How do you get them to realize they're going to die young, be disabled, be demented, maybe be amputated? They may grab their chest and just fall over and die. How do you change people like that? I'm ready to listen. And I think this is a very difficult subject. But just to give up and throw in the towel, I'm just not going to do. I look around and try to act on it. And I've changed, okay? My dad had a deli in New York, so I had some rethinking, and I drank milk every day as a child and had acne and all sorts of things that were my thing, but I didn't know milk did that, but I do know now. So fasting is huge in history. Entire tribes fasted to spirituality. And remember, ketones increase the power of your brain to think clear. Most Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and remember I said Alzheimer's disease may not even exist. It's just an end stage to a memory problem. And ketones increase the power of the brain. Most memory loss problems are related to insulin resistance. Yes, from diabetes. Prevent the diabetes and Alzheimer's disease may be dead. There are a few genetic cases. Remember I said that. So I encourage you to have a look at it. What I encourage you to do, get a serum insulin test. Find out if you're on the path to diabetes. Get your children to get a test. Get it tested yearly. Put it in a book so that you have record of it changing. And if you find that, I think I'm diabetic, that you try fasting 16-8. And you need some more information. So look at these books. I recommend it, and maybe you read my book. I wrote about it because I truly feel that we are surrounded by the medical industry, government industry, politicians, all making money. There's been a failure of public health, school lunch program. I looked at the lunches in across the country and across the world. We are feeding our kids trouble foods. Maybe nobody cares, or maybe the lobbyists have told the federal government to design a way to keep everybody sick so they can make a lot of money. This book is all about that. Dr. Rudy's War on Diabetes and the industry that created it. These industries are surrounding the sad face. So, but anyway, thanks for listening to my story. Gather more information, not just me. Read some of the books I recommend. Look at other YouTube shows. People from India, so I said it would be a good idea that we would join them. We want to make this to be a healthy world. After all, I am a doctor, and this body is not just a war zone, it's also the body of our religious leaders. It's our soul. So if we're feeding our soul and our body bad food, we're not really religious, are we? So I hope you try fasting. And if you get questions, look me up, and I gladly talk to you. It's been my pleasure to give this presentation, and I hope it has some influence across the world. Other countries are contacting us, want to use our information. Namaste. I love you all. Thank you.